As the three neared the gates, they noticed two people standing by the entrance. The first signs of human life they had seen since leaving Vault 13. They couldn't make out the details of the two people in the dark, but it became apparent that at least one of them, the man, was armed with a hunting rifle of some sort. A single guard tower was the only building they could see that rose up from behind the wall. A lone figure, standing in the crow's nest of the tower, spotted them and gave a small but sharp whistle to the man below at the entrance, who unslung his rifle and got up from his seat. He made a gesture with his hand to someone out of sight behind the wall, and he was soon joined with two other men carrying what looked to be handcrafted spears.
"Greetings, strangers,"
the first man called to them.
"Rather late to be wandering around the wastelands, isn't it?"
We were actually pushing ourselves on in the hopes of finding shelter for the night,"
said Albert.
"Well, you're not dressed or equipped like raiders, but we've been wrong before."
Wait, Seth!
said the woman, her eyes wide with surprise.
Look at their clothes. They're from a vault.
"Is that true?"
said the man called Seth, his voice losing some of its edge.
"We are."
Quite a number of us come from a vault to the east. I'm Katrina, and this is Seth.
The vault dwellers took turns introducing themselves.
"You said you come from a vault to the east.
Said Albert, his voice betraying his clear interest.
You're not talking about Vault 15, are you?"
You know of us?
Katrina gasped.
"We're headed in that direction.
Albert revealed.
Our vault needs a new water purification chip, and we were hoping Vault 15 would have a spare."
Oh,
Katrina's face fell.
you'd better come in. There are a few things you should know about Vault 15.
"Why? What's wrong?"
Albert asked as the three were permitted entry into the town. The woman led the way up the runway. The one called Seth indicated to his two companions to follow them as a precautionary measure.
Vault 15 isn't the place it used to be. At least, so I hear. One of the merchants who comes to our town every once in a while said he had tried to go to the vault with his caravan to have a look around a couple of months ago. But the lights were all out, the elevator was broken, and the stairwells were blocked by rubble.
"What happened?"
I couldn't say exactly. Almost 20 years ago, when I was still a girl, the vault got attacked by raiders. I got injured and blacked out. By the time I woke, we were already out in the wilderness, wandering aimlessly and looking for a place to settle down.
Albert sighed heavily.
"Do you suppose the vault had any spare water purification chips in its store?"
I'm not sure, but our leader, Aradesh, might know. He was with us from the beginning.
"Can we meet with him?"
That's where I'm taking you. Aradesh likes to meet all newcomers to Shady Sands.
"That's the name of this town?"
Katrina nodded as they passed by a pillar that stood in the center of the runway at what seemed to be the place in the town with the most concentrated congregation of adobe huts. The three vault dwellers looked up at the showpiece of Shady Sands. Its four sides and pedestal were covered in words and pictures. They were passing by too quickly to read the words, but the images clearly showed the historical intent and content of the showpiece. The pictures went in chronological order from the base to the top. At the bottom were mushroom-shaped clouds symbolizing the fall of civilization in 2077. Interspersed with the images of nuclear explosions were paintings of hundreds of people entering subterranean vaults. At the very top of the pillar were pictures of people laying bricks and farming together. It was, if anything, a depiction of hope and peace. But whether the topmost images were of a period now past or of an anticipated future was left unknown to the vault dwellers. They finally arrived at the town hall, the only pre-war building in the town. Before the war, it had been part of the small airstrip. Now, it functioned as the community center, dining hall, and kitchen for the entire Shady Sands community. The main room was large and filled with handmade tables and chairs. The building must have once consisted of just one big room, but the townspeople had created partitions and additional rooms using what appeared to be tanned animal skins attached to vertical wooden frames. The makeshift walls had no doors, but curtains made of pieces of cloth sewn together functioned as substitutes. Katrina left the three vault dwellers in the main room and disappeared behind one of the curtains. A short while later, she returned accompanied by a tall, middle-aged man with close-cropped black hair and a long, lanky face. His large eyes stared down at them over his hawkish nose with undisguised suspicion. He glanced at their attire and his features softened, but only for a moment.
Greetings.
he said in a strange accent that sounded almost South Asian.
Your business in Shady Sands might be...
None of the vault dwellers could place his origins with any certainty. If they had to place him by his looks and voice, they might have attributed to him a mixture of South Asian and Native American lineage. It was clear that this man was the authority figure of the village. Aradesh, Katrina had called him. It was also clear that he was not very trusting of outsiders.
We come from a vault to the west,
said Albert on behalf of the group.
We're on our way to Vault 15 in the hopes of finding a water purifier chip to replace ours. Our arrival here was purely fortuitous. In fact, your town holds the first signs of human life we've encountered since leaving our vault.
The tall man's face betrayed a look of puzzlement, contemplation, and still a hint of mistrust. He rubbed his cleft chin thoughtfully.
Your attire matches your story, but raiders have infiltrated our peaceful community before under similar pretenses.
He gave each of them a hard look before eventually coming to a decision.
I shall believe you, for now. You will be permitted to stay in Shady Sands for tonight, but be warned, your every move will be watched.
We thank you for your hospitality,
Albert said with a slight nod.
It is late, but I will have some food set for you. Katrina will tell you what you need to know and show you to your accommodations for the night. We will speak more tomorrow morning.
With that, the town leader turned and left through the curtain to the room from whence he had first come.
That certainly could have gone worse,
Natalia commented. Katrina, who had been standing by the side while Aradesh had grilled them, now returned to them and bade them sit at one of the tables. Then she departed through the other curtained entryway.
We didn't get the information we were looking for,
said Natalia as they waited.
In time. With any luck, we'll be able to gradually earn the trust of these people. But the one thing we can't do is lose what little credibility we have right now. We'll take things slow. We're seeing Aradesh again tomorrow anyway. Perhaps we can ask him then.
Katrina returned with 3 sets of clean clothes. They were the kind of attire the vault dwellers had only ever seen in movies and documentaries of pre-war times. All they had ever known were variations of the multi-purpose blue jumpsuits of the vault.
Let me take you to our guest house,
she said, and led the way out of the town hall. They walked back down the runway until they came to an adobe hut near the entrance to town where Seth still stood guard. The hut stood almost immediately opposite a larger adobe building that, Katrina told them, was the guardhouse. The guest house was square-shaped and had for windows a mix of semi-circular openings and horizontal slats. The former were to provide the occupants with a view of the outside. The latter were too high up on the walls to look out of and were probably for ventilation purposes. The main section of the house triple functioned as a living room, dining room, and kitchen. The kitchen area was extremely rudimentary. A clay pot, a wooden bowl, and a pestle for crushing and separating grain sat on the floor just next to a simple wood-burning stove, which itself was situated next to one of the semicircular windows. In the center of the room stood a single handmade table with 2 wooden chairs. At the other end was a bookcase full of tattered novels. A simple woven rug sat before it, a clear substitute for what might otherwise have been a sofa or lounge chair. A partition of animal hide set in wooden frames, just like they had seen in the town hall, created the walls for a second room. Passing through the curtain, they found themselves in a bedroom comprised of nothing but a queen-sized bed. Katrina informed them of the existence of a small outhouse not too far from the guest house. It was a smaller adobe construct with 2 toilets separated from each other by the same animal hide walls and curtain doors. There was no flushing system. Only a large pile of leaves next to each toilet to be dropped down the hole to help manage the odor of the large compost heap dug below it. With the short tour, Katrina handed the dry clothes over to them and told them to meet her back at the dining room in the town hall once they had changed. The 3 vault dwellers were grateful to be out of their soggy jumpsuits, but even more grateful for the sandals. For the past few hours, it had been their waterlogged boots that had been the main source of discomfort. Thanking Katrina, they proceeded to get changed in anticipation of a freshly cooked meal.
So, what can I tell you more about while we wait for the food to be prepared?
Katrina asked, half an hour later when they had each taken a seat around one of the tables in the town hall. Besides Katrina, only their 2 guards, who had been assigned with making sure they did not outstay their welcome in any way, were present. The guards stood by the door, their spears held casually but very visibly by their sides.
Where to begin? How does a place like Shady Sands even survive out here?
It's not always easy, believe me. But we have our own irrigation system, so we can grow our own food. And whatever we don't have, whether it's equipment or produce, we trade for.
Trade? With whom?
Mostly with merchants from other towns.
There are other places like this?
Natalia asked wide-eyed.
Oh, not like this.
Katrina corrected her.
Now, I haven't actually traveled much, but from what I hear, some of the other towns are huge compared to Shady Sands.
Where are these places?
Somewhere to the south. I couldn't say exactly. Ian would know more. He's far more widely traveled than I.
Where is he?
Albert said, continuing the flow of questions.
Over in the guardhouse, the one right by the entrance. He used to be a merchant guard, but he's been recovering here in Shady Sands since he got injured in a raider attack.
You mentioned raiders before. You said they attacked your vault.
Well, they are not just one group. There are at least 3 gangs around this area. You'd have to ask Ian or Seth more about that, though.
Do these raiders ever attack Shady Sands?
Periodically. We grow our own food and raise our own livestock. The raiders don't have the ability or skills to do either, so they try to take them from us. Sometimes they succeed.
Wait a minute. Livestock?
Natalia was incredulous. Katrina nodded and her smile grew.
You haven't seen the Brahma yet.
Brahma?
Natalia choked back a laugh. Katrina nodded again.
That's what we call them. I think they're named after the American Brahmin.
Cows?
Albert spluttered,
Not just any cows.
said Katrina, clearly enjoying herself.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Speaking of which,
The smell of some kind of savory, meaty broth began wafting out of the kitchen to their nostrils, making their mouths water. Dinner finally arrived shortly after. Each of them got a bowl heaped with beef stew and an earthen cup of water to wash it down. Meat was a luxury within Vault 13, consisting entirely of produce that had been freeze-dried using state-of-the-art techniques from before the war, which allowed it to last up to a century in storage. In order to ensure that supplies lasted that long, Vault dwellers were placed on a strict rationing system that usually entailed 1 meat-rich meal per week. Eggs and dairy products that had been preserved using similar techniques were used to pad out the protein intake of the Vault's population throughout a given week, and hydroponic agriculture took care of the rest of their dietary needs. So, what was to the residents of Shady Sands a fairly standard dish was to them a feast fit for a king. A separate platter was set in the middle of the table with sliced pieces of a strange green fruit. To satisfy their curiosity, Katrina showed them one of the fruits before it had been cut. It was a large, roughly spherical, if rather warty, melon of some sort with 2 stalks protruding from the top. Katrina assured them it was edible. As they ate, Katrina told them all she knew about her vault. She said she had been raised there for many years, but the place had been overcrowded and the standard of living low. Eventually, the vault had experienced a schism, and many people had left, taking with them the best equipment. Some, including herself, had tried to stay in the vault despite the setbacks, but all that had come to an end with the raider attacks. After dinner, they were escorted back to their house where the 2 guards took up their positions by the doorway. Natalia got the bed despite her protests, while the 2 men opened up their bedrolls on the floor.